Today I want to talk a little bit about me and my wife's personal property portfolio and the mistakes we made in starting out. Now, the thing about mistakes is, in retrospect, they are mistakes, but when you go through mistakes in life, in your property portfolio journey, what they are is, I want to say like a godsend, right? I can't believe I just said that, but the reality is mistakes could either be what breaks you or they could be the biggest and best learning curve that you will ever have. And the biggest mistake or the biggest pivot that we had in our portfolio was the point when we were starting our portfolio out and we weren't really buying investment properties, or properties that I would call today like investment grade properties. We were just buying properties that we thought looked nice and we thought that were nice to live in. And the reality is most of the capital growth and most of the things that will make an investment property a good thing to buy are not necessarily the same things that will make it a good home to live in, right? So when it comes to investing in property, it's about understanding the market. For me, it's about understanding the market cycle and taking advantage of Australia as a whole and the different market cycles that are going on in different states. So, for example, if you buy a home in Victoria and it's not in a good position in terms of the market cycle and it's a flat market, you may have to wait a very long time to see any capital growth in that property you're buying there, even though it may be a nice home to live in, even though, everyone wants to live there. The fact that everyone wants to live there doesn't help its capital growth if it's in a depressed state of the depressed stage of the market. So that was one of the first big mistakes that we went through when we were buying our property portfolio. We were buying places because we thought they were nice to live in, and that was it. Ultimately, we got capped out at about 2 properties, buying properties in that way. We were effectively buying rundown homes that weren't that flash, and we were renovating them, and then we'd move on to the next one and do the same thing on the next one. We would landscape it, maybe add a bathroom, paint the whole house, get new flooring in, redo the kitchen, all that sort of stuff. And the reality is it was a lot of work, and it didn't actually get us that much of a return. There was not a very big ROI on doing that. So I just when we were going through it, I was thinking to myself, this doesn't really feel like it. Doesn't really seem like it's working too well. And at that point, we were getting to the point where we were like, we can't buy any more properties because we're capped out servicing wise. Because why? Because we're buying homes that were nice to live in, which weren't really good in terms of investment properties. The cash flow was terrible, and it was costing us a fortune to hold on to them, meaning we couldn't save up for a new deposit, and we couldn't service with the banks to get more debt to buy more properties. So what really hit the nail on the head for us with that was when we actually, when I say we weren't able to service, I mean servicing was becoming very tight, very hard, and we actually were able to get one more property after that. But I thought to myself, okay, like I've got a very limited budget here, or my total budget's around 200 grand. Like I don't think there are any properties in Australia that are 200 grand. But I did a lot of research. It took me a long time, but I ended up finding some properties that were under 200 grand, and they were in Perth. And I ended up buying the property in Perth based on principles that property investors were using at the time, and that the investor that I was taking my or learning from was Nathan Birch, and he looks for under market properties with good cash flow and good capital growth potential. So instead of looking for homes that I thought were nice, I started running properties through this lens. And I had a choice whether I was going to buy a $200,000 house or buy a $180,000 unit, which had, and the reality was I was still quite fixated on houses at that point, but after learning from Nathan Birch, he said, look, whether it's a house or a unit, it doesn't matter. As long as it has capital growth potential, then should buy it, obviously, and then it has to obviously cash flow as well. And the reality is, the unit had much better cash flow than the house. And the reason I bought the unit was because the better the cash flow was on the property, the more servicing it would allow me to get to move into the next phase of my portfolio. So I went with the unit, and it was literally one of the best decisions I made. After a while, not long at all, about 3 months in, the property had generated enough capital growth to actually take out in equity, which was the same amount that I put in capital. So it was 100% ROI in a 3-month period. It was 100% cash on cash return in a 3-month period, which is really crazy. You won't hear investors getting those returns often. So at that point, I realized, okay, I need to completely rethink my strategy. Like what I'd done to start the portfolio, it was a mistake and it got me to where I was, but it will not take me any further. So it was a really tough decision, because for me, I'm a long-term investor and I'm a buy and hold sort of investor. So the idea of selling property for me is totally against what I was trying to do. But the reality is, if you have the choice if you have to sell a property to take your portfolio to the next level, then it doesn't matter what you originally thought. Then I should be doing whatever it takes. I should be doing whatever it takes to take the portfolio to the next level. And if that meant selling the property, then I did that. And after doing that, it was a really hard decision. I sold the 2 properties in Victoria that were like homes that were nice to live in, and from that point 3.5 years ago, we've grown our property portfolio to 11 properties, valued at $4 million. So if we stayed where we were, if I didn't make that move to sell, there would be a few things that would be not so great. One would be I probably wouldn't even be interested in investing anymore, because it would just be too hard, because my cash flow, it would be for those 2 properties or those 3 properties, but with those 2 properties in Victoria that were houses, the cash flow would probably be somewhere near $300 or $400 negative cash flow per week, meaning that each week of holding a portfolio, it would cost me $300 or $400, and it would just put me off. I wouldn't be interested in it at all. So that's that I avoided that. And also the properties today in Victoria, the value of them is, the capital growth on them has been very small. So maybe both properties combined would be worth about $1 million. So my property portfolio, if I didn't sell those properties, my property portfolio would probably be only worth $1.5 million tops. Instead, it's worth $4 million, and the property portfolio today is cash flowing positive $20,000 per year, instead of $20,000 negative per year. So it's a big difference. It's like a $40,000 difference in cash flow, and I live a pretty stress-free life in terms of knowing that my financial future is secure. And to move forward, a lot of the time you need to make hard decisions, and a lot of the time It's about making mistakes and then recognizing the mistakes and correcting them. The reality is you can't really, well, you can avoid mistakes, but you know, even if you do make mistakes, it's not the end of the world. You can just learn from them, and mistakes are usually the best lessons you could ever learn from. If this helped, just give me a thumbs up or a like, and just follow the channel. Thanks, guys. Bye.